Very interesting, Dr. Solomon. What makes HOA syndrome different from other types of stress disorders?
HOA syndrome differs from other stress disorders because of its origin. Other stress disorders may come about from a wide range of general anxiety, specific phobias. But this particular disorder comes about for one reason only. It comes about as a result of the treatment by one's own homeowners association.
When did you first decide that HOA syndrome was a unique disorder?
About 2.5 years ago, I began to notice quite something odd about the place that I moved into. I live in a place called Calico Ridge, which is in Henderson, Nevada, which is just on the outskirts of Las Vegas, Nevada. A beautiful and extraordinary neighborhood. Calico has its own individuality. But when I got closer to the neighborhood, standing on the deck that we're actually recording from, I noticed that the streets were empty, that they were overly calm. There were no children playing on the streets. There wasn't anybody walking a dog. No one was out there doing anything. At about the same time, people started coming to me and saying, "Are you having problems with your homeowners association? Are you having difficulties? Is there anything going on?" Well, it was about that time that I began to connect the two. That the homes and the homeowners and the homeowners association, people were having problems related to the homeowner and the homeowners boards. People were feeling harassed. It was about that time that I connected the two and started breaking it down from a scientific point of view, from an analytical point of view, and started recognizing that this was actually a separate, identifiable psychiatric condition. So what I did to kind of do this scientifically was that I would put myself in these HOA environments. I would go to different people's HOA meetings. It didn't matter to me whether I was a member of the HOA or not. I just would go into the meeting and I would sit and listen. And it became clear to me rather quickly, we got a problem here. These are people who sit on the boards, what are known as the HOA boards, and they're raised to a point of power, a point of authority, where they actually hurt other people. Having been raised to this point of power, they use their authority and their control over their neighbors to tell them how to live, the way to live, who can come and go, who can park on the street, who can live in the house, the color of the house, any nature of problems. The more I looked into it, the worse it got. I went into some neighborhoods where the HOA began to dictate the way a garage could be organized. I went into some communities that dictated the paint color on the inside of the home, not just the outside. What could be sitting on the window? In fact, it went from one problem to the next to the next. The more I looked, the worse it got. So I began to look at this problem from a psychiatric point of view. The first thing that came to mind was post-traumatic stress disorder. A lot of what I was looking at here was an issue of post-traumatic stress disorder, but there was something different about it. These people were not being traumatized by a single event, and they weren't being traumatized by a series of traumas. They were being traumatized by harassment. And this then put it into another classification. This has created what I now call HOA syndrome. And HOA syndrome, I believe, is so rampant in the United States that it is literally destroying and tearing apart entire communities. Part of my goal here is to take you on a journey to look at management companies, collection companies, attorneys who are literally surviving off of the back and the sweat of people who own homes, who are paying to live in their homes twice, once to their mortgage company and once to their HOA, who in turn are living a little bit more green than the rest of us. When I began to look at the situation here, I was really quite stunned. What was causing a community that was so perfect looking as this, to appear as if it were dead? Well, something happened that I thought was rather interesting. Around the same time that I would stand on this deck that overlooks this incredible city, people would come to me and they would say, "Welcome to the neighborhood. And by the way, have you had problems with your homeowners association?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. I hadn't been here long enough to understand. But that happened over and over and over again. And then, with an unconnected thought, I would stand on the deck that you see me standing on right now, and I would look out over the community. And as is the nature with science sometimes, the concept of phenomenology comes into play. That is the connecting of thoughts and ideas to come to a potential hypothesis or an idea. Is it possible, was it possible, that the homeowners association was causing the mood of the community? And so I began doing research, not only in this community, but in communities throughout Las Vegas. I would go into the community and I would just sit and watch. I would listen to what people had to say.
So, Dr. Solomon, why take on such a fight against what seems to be an unstoppable force coming from some HOAs?
I have been an advocate for homeowners living in homeowners associations now for over a year. I have very specifically been an advocate for the elderly. This does meet the standard, the legal standard for elder abuse. But people have asked me, why have I taken on this kind of a battle? And the answer might seem a bit dramatic to you. As a child, I sat in front of the television with my parents watching footage from the Second World War. I was born 2 years after the death of Hitler. And I would look at the way that the Germans had treated people, not just one group, but a lot of groups of people, and the detriment that they had caused them. I compare a great deal of what's going on in HOAs to the kinds of problems that had been created by the Nazis. What once were wonderful communities now are becoming ghettos. Ghettos are now becoming places where people are afraid to live. It is not acceptable to me to allow this to happen again in my lifetime. I don't want it to be acceptable to anybody. I think and believe that the government should have intervened, but they've yet to do so. This is our tsunami. This is our plane crash. This is our Katrina, but it's going on all over the United States. There are a few people profiting off of the detriment and damage to many. And I see it as part of my personal responsibility as a human being to see that those people are brought to justice. And if those people are brought to justice, and it happens as a result of something happening to happen to me, well, so be it. But somebody has to stand up and somebody has to say something.